Hello everyone, this is Eddie Wilson, the founder of Think Realty. I'm so glad to have you on the show today. We've got an awesome guest that we are so excited to have as a part of the show. But first of all, I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor, and that sponsor is the Money Multiplier. They map out the millionaire mystery where you will learn how to grow your wealth without locking your money away or giving up control. You can learn this valuable information that'll change your financial life on their website, themoneymultiplier.com. That's themoneymultiplier.com. So I am standing in today for our traditional host because of the exceptional nature of our guest today. So I'm so excited to have our guest, and our guest is none other than Robert Kiyosaki. Robert, thank you so much for joining us today. It is my pleasure to have you on the show, and I appreciate you being a part of it.
Well, I appreciate the flattery. That really is above and beyond the call of duty, so thank you.
Sure. Well, I mean it. I was a 16-year-old boy when my father gave me the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'm sure that you've heard millions of stories around the world as that book has reached people across the world and impacted their lives. And so every bit of flattery that I gave you, I really mean it, and it has impacted my life, my family's life, and I know millions of real estate investors around the world that we serve. And so I want to just thank you for all of that.
Well, thank you, but also thank your dad. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just, by way of introduction, obviously, if you've never heard of Robert Kiyosaki, which I can't imagine that anyone in our space hasn't heard of you or read your book, but you have some recent books out, and, obviously, you've been teaching and training for years now. But do you mind just kind of walking through, and this is a book that I recently read, but the book is entitled Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets. You wrote that book, and I just want you to talk a little bit about it. Like, what was the thought process behind that book? What was the message you were trying to convey?
Well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is a true story of my two fathers. My poor dad was a PhD in education. And, teachers know nothing about money. And my rich dad was my best friend's father. And he never went to school. And I learned about money playing Monopoly. So that's how I wound up as a real estate investor. As most real estate guys know, the secret to success is 4 green houses, 1031 tax deferred exchange into a red hotel. And so that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said lesson number 1 is the rich don't work for money, savers or losers, and your house is not an asset. And I caught hell for that 20-something years ago. So anyway, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is kind of high school, and Fake is graduate school, or at least college. So it's saying the same things at a different level with different motivations. So Fake starts off in 1972. I was a U.S. Marine pilot flying helicopters off of the coast of Vietnam, and my rich dad sent me a letter saying, watch out, the world's going to change because President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And, most Americans in my generation, we never even saw gold. We didn't know what gold was. So being a Marine and not the brightest guys on earth, I decided to go look for gold. And I was reading the maps of Vietnam while on the carrier. And I saw this gold mine in Vietnam. One big problem, we were losing the war, and that gold mine was now behind enemy lines.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's where the book starts. And so my co-pilot and I fly behind enemy lines to go buy gold. And that's when I got schooled by this little Vietnamese woman, probably 5'2" tall, skinny, red teeth because she chewed betel nuts. And I was trying to knock the price of gold. Gold was about $45 an ounce then. And I was trying to get it for 40, and she just laughed at me, She said, you gotta be kidding me. And I realized most people, most Americans especially, don't know nothing about gold. So that's where the book Fake Money comes from. Because in 1971, August 15th, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, and our money became fake. So where fake teachers comes in, and then fake assets. The only way fake money, fake teachers, and fake assets like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs can be sold to the public is because you need all three. You need fake money, you need fake teachers like my poor dad and most college professors, and then you need Wall Street to sell us these fake junk assets. So it's fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. And if you just step back and smell the roses, you look at what Wall Street has been doing for the last 20 something years is selling these horrible toxic assets to the world. It started with MBSs, mortgage-backed securities, collateralized debt obligations, and all this. So unfortunately, the Federal Reserve Bank and Wall Street have become criminal operations. So my generation, the baby boomers, we're in serious trouble right now because we have no money. And when the next stock market crash comes, they're going to find out how fake the stock market is. So anyway, that's why I wrote Fake. It's graduate school for those who liked Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. What a great, concise understanding of that book. You obviously have promoted real estate and real estate investing as an asset class that makes sense for the American public. You highlighted that even again in this past book. But we've got our platform, Think Realty, is a platform for real estate investors. We've got millions of people that come to our platform that are real estate investors. But I think sometimes in a market like where we're in today, where you've got kind of the peak of the marketplace, where they're struggling to find deals, they're struggling to find opportunity. You're one of the people from your organization said that you've got kind of three components that you make as a case for people that are investing in real estate. What are those three components? Help me talk more people into going into real estate. It's made such a huge difference in my life, but what are those components for you?
Well, I don't know what somebody from my organization says. I no longer work at Rich Dad. I'm out.
I understand that.
So we have people that are spokespeople for me. So I don't know what they say anymore, unfortunately. I think they have blogs and all that stuff, but I'm such an old guy, I don't do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, real estate has nothing to do with real estate. Real estate for me is very simply three things: debt. I use 100% debt to buy, and I pay no taxes, and I have cash flow. So it's debt, taxes, and cash flow. So, I started investing when I came back from Vietnam in 1973, and I took a real estate course for 3 days, $385, which was a lot of money for a Marine lieutenant. I was only making about $800 or $900 a month. And so I bought this 1 bedroom, 1 bath property on the island of Maui for nothing down. And I made $25. And my life changed. I said, I can make money without money. So in technical terms, I call it an infinite return. So my poor dad, he was my rich dad said, take a real estate course. And my poor dad wanted to me to get my MBA. So at the same time I was making $25 with no money, I'm sitting in my MBA program. I walk in there in my Marine Corps pilot's outfit. I get spit on by those effing students because they hated Marines in those days. So I had to sit there and put up with some college professor who knew nothing about the real world. As you know, college professors are some of the biggest idiots I know. And they're good people, but they're not very bright when it comes to real life. So anyway, he was trying to teach me accounting, and this accounting teacher didn't know assets from liabilities. So I got thrown out of that class too.
That's awesome.
So anyway, the reason I like real estate is because it's real. It's not really real. Real comes from the Spanish word real, which means royal.
Sure.
So the royals have always owned real estate, and the peasants own stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
I just want to know. I want to know when I can get to the age that I get to say the things that you get to say and get away with them, because I love the line of thinking, but I always get in trouble when I say those things. But I love it. So obviously you said that it's not necessarily real estate. It's just that real estate's a vehicle that performs under those three circumstances that you talked about, right? I mean, have you found any other investment vehicles that would rival real estate? I mean, are you into private equity? Are you into other forms of investment, or is real estate your tried and true vehicle?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but real estate is private equity. It's also private credit. It's called the shadow banking system. There's a public system, which is where all of the employees and doctors and lawyers are at, and they're always in the public market, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. But the real money is made in shadow banking, which is private equity or private credit. And the reason I like real estate is because I'm an inside investor. So I invest from the inside. And those guys in the public markets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, they're from the outside.
Sure.
So they get their butts handed to them.
Robert,
I think it's hysterical, but as you say, you get in trouble. It's not politically correct to say you're an insider and you don't pay taxes.
How old do you have to be before you can say politically incorrect things and get away with them? Is there a certain age limit you have to be at? Is that the deal?
Well, I'm a U.S. Marine. I don't give a shit what they think.
I love it. That's awesome. You've got a new book coming out, Robert. You've got a new book called The Ravens. It sounds like a really interesting title. So would you mind giving us a preview of what's about to come out and maybe the thought process behind it?
Well, I have two new books. Actually, there's three projects coming out for 2020. The first book is actually called Who Stole My Pension? Because the issue for the baby boomers is we don't have a pension. Mm-hmm. And the baby boomers, see, what happened in 71 was Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. In 74, they started shifting employees out of defined benefits into defined contribution pension plans, which is called the 401k, the IRA or RRSP in Canada. And the baby boomers got hosed. So what happened is today's baby boomers are in serious trouble financially. The average police officer will retire with $1.5 million in their defined benefit pension plan. School teachers also. But the average employee of the 401k will wind up with $60,000 in their 401k.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I go for $60,000 a month, much less the rest of my life.
Sure.
So that's another reason I recommend real estate is simply your private equity, your private credit, your private all that. But you got to be smarter. You've got to be smarter than somebody would actually buy a stock, bond, mutual fund, or ETF. So that takes financial education. So that's kind of the trade-off there. And most people are so lazy, they'd rather just be told what to do by a fake teacher called a financial planner.
There you go again. More politically incorrect stuff. I like it.
Well, I'm just telling you the facts, Jack. I mean, there's shadow banking and there's regular banking.
Sure.
So, when I was younger, there was a thing called LBOs, leverage buyouts. Today it's called private equity. Mm-hmm. And then there was junk bonds, and now they're called high yield bonds.
Sure.
They just changed the name for the suckers out there. Just these suckers. I mean, they're just suckers. I hate to say it, but they're just like my poor dad. They know nothing, but they got their PhDs.
Right.
So that's why I write, and that's why I make rude remarks, and maybe somebody will wake up.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know this, but most baby boomers are in serious trouble today.
Sure.
And they're, the good news is they're going to live longer, but they'll probably be living in a tent on the street.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't even afford the rent.
It's a scary position to be in for sure.
Hey, when I talk about assets and liabilities, there's also human liabilities. Mm-hmm. They're called family. Think about it. How many of your immediate family are going to be your liabilities?
Sure.
I got lots. Very good people, all Democrats. all with master's degrees and not a pot to pee in.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I hate to be such an ass, but
Hey,
how else do you wake people up?
and
You know, tell them to invest for the long term in the stock market?
it makes for good TV, so I'm all for it. I like it.
What's that?
I said, and it makes for good TV, so I like it. I'm all for it. I enjoy hearing you're just down to earth speak. It's great. This
Yeah. I mean, if I was lying, that would be something else.
Sure.
But the average Joe out there, you know, the average PhD, like the Fed, they don't even know what shadow banking is.
Sure.
And that's why they get hammered all the time when these derivatives go bust, because they don't even know what that means. These PhDs are really, really stupid people when it comes to money.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That's the problem.
You're right. Go back to that book title. I really want to hear why you call this book The Ravens. There's got to be some story there as to what this book means, or is it the birds picking over the bones? I mean, what's the story behind this book?
No. Raven is the Greek mythology bird of prophecy.
Okay.
If you come to my house, sitting in the front as you drive up are two ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't, and my book was called Prophecy. 2002. It was the failure of the 401k system.
Sure.
So I've been calling. I called the Lehman Brothers crash 7 months before they crashed. It was so obvious to see. So I'm co-writing the book with Jim Rickards, who wrote Currency Wars, New Case for Gold. Mm-hmm. His latest book is called Aftermath. And we say the same thing: is you should not be in the stock market, and you should stay out of banks. And you should be owning gold and silver, not ETFs or paper. So, Jim is probably one of the smartest guys I know and I hang out with. And you're gonna love this book, The Ravens, and you'll also like Rich Dad. Who Stole My Pension, with Ted Siddell. Ted Siddell is the biggest whistleblower in the world today. Last year, he made $75 million blowing a whistle on Wall Street because they're a bunch of crooks.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to reading these books. You said that they're going to be coming out in 2020?
Yeah, Ravens is supposed, Who Stole My Pension is supposed to come out in January. Obviously, I'm still working on it. And I haven't started Ravens yet, so I'm up against the wall right now.
Got it. Very good. Well, I'm looking forward to it. One last question.
I just love writing these books because I get to mess with people's brains. I just really hate it when people lie to people.
Sure.
Go to school, get a job, pay taxes, work hard, get out of debt, invest for the long term in the stock market. Your house is not an asset. Your house is an asset, That's all fake.
Yeah.
It takes fake money, fake teachers, fake assets. All three have to work together.
Sure.
Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Right. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you educating the American population. It's a solid thing when somebody stands up and tells the truth, no matter what. We very rarely get that today. Let me ask you one quick question, and I won't take up much more of your time. I appreciate it today, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's one thing to have a concept that changes a culture that works within a certain period of time. It's another thing to preach this kind of truth that transcends multiple generations. Rich Dad seems to be those truths, those transcending truths that just go from generation to generation. It's something that I'm teaching my children. So what is a truth, or what are some of those truths that are foundational to that core that are the ones that transcend all these generations?
Well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is only a book on accounting. And when I was in my MBA program, accounting was the most boring subject there was, which is why I got kicked out of the program, because the accounting teacher was full of it. He didn't know anything about accounting, but he had a master's in accountancy. So accountancy or accounting is the basis of education. But 99% of these college graduates and high school graduates have no idea what a financial statement is. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is very simply a book on accounting. There's three basic financial statements a person needs to know. One is the income statement, sometimes called a P&L. The second is the balance sheet, which is assets and liability. And third is a statement of cash flow. So the reason I love real estate is because I use 100% debt and I get an infinite return on my asset and I make money. So my wife and I have 7,000 rental properties, and we have commercial properties, and we have oil wells, and we have golf courses, and we have hotels. And so I just practice what I preach. And I also have friends who are like professors, and they might have 300,000 in their 401k. They're toast. They're my age. I'm 72. They're toast. And when the stock market crashes, which it will, they're burnt toast.
Unfortunately, along with all the other people in America that have bought into that ideology that the 401k is going to be there and be the vehicle that allows them to go into retirement comfortably. It's sad.
Well, let me give you those stats again. The average police officer or school teacher retires with 1.5 million in pension defined benefit guarantees. Like I said, in 2002, I wrote Prophecy, which is about the 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And the average person with a 401k is going to have maybe $70,000 to $80,000 in it. You're not going to last the rest of your life on that.
Sure.
And then on top of that, they have negative interest rates today. Just last week, they dropped interest rates from 2% to 1.75. That crushes every saver on planet Earth.
Sure.
And they're still telling these stupid kids to save money. Are you going to be
Right.
kidding me? And invest in the stock market. And the only reason the stock market is high is because our labor unions and public pensions are driving that stock market through the roof. The real investors got out of the stock market around 2012 because fundamentally it made no sense anymore.
Right.
So today, look at companies like General Motors, Ford, AT&T, GE, and Dell Computers. Their bond ratings are triple B.
Yeah.
They went from triple A to triple B,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's pre-junk.
Sure.
So our CEOs of our country have ripped off the employees who work for those corporations. So today, the debt to GDP of U.S. corporations is something like 70% debt to GDP. We have zombie corporations today because our CEOs have ripped us off. And then all the baby boomers are counting on stocks and bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs to stay alive. So I'm not lying. I'm just saying this is what I know because I'm a student of this.
Right. Well, I appreciate your time so much today. It was a great thrill to be able to interview you today and talk with you and listen to you. I love your candidness and openness. I can't wait to read the books that are coming out. Any last thoughts or last words before we jump off?
No, thanks for doing what you're doing. Is because there's a million ways to go to financial heaven, and 10 billion ways to go to financial hell.
Yeah. So true. So true. Well, thank you so much, Robert. I appreciate it. If you guys make sure you stay tuned and watch for his books to come out. Thank you so much for watching Think Realty. One more time, I want to say a quick thank you to our podcast sponsor, which is the Money Multiplier, where they map out the millionaire mystery. This 20-year-old concept is nothing new. They just teach you how to grow your wealth without locking your money away or giving up control. You can learn this valuable information that will change your financial life on their website at themoneymultiplier.com. Thank you so much. It's been great again to have such a great guest today on the show, Robert Kiyosaki. I'm sure many of you that watch this show and are in our space are very familiar with him. And I think for me, probably one of my favorite now opportunities to interview someone, because I don't get starstruck much, but someone like him that has been around this industry and has given so much to us by way of information and a different way of thinking, changing our mindset, has made an impact on millions of Americans, and I appreciate that about him. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please join us. Make sure you're joining our social page. pages and all those things. Interact with us, give us questions, thoughts, tell us who you want us to talk to, and we will do our best to make sure to put the great content of real estate investing in front of you each and every day at thinkrealty.com. Have a great day.